and welcome to Qtr Time podcast in partnership with Carbon Jacked. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
We're delighted to say that this series of Qtr Time podcasts is supported by Carbon Jacked, an environmental startup that helps you combat climate change.
They're an awesome company that provide monthly memberships which plant trees, support epic climate projects, and help you to reduce your carbon footprint.
Memberships start from just £2.50 per month, so you can help save the planet for less than a cup of coffee.
Signing up is super easy. Go to carbonjack.com and enter NetballPod for a huge 30% off. The link is in our show notes. Go check it out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Qtr Time podcast. So it's been another big week in the netball world, hasn't it? There's just
when
seems
is it
like
never not a big week?
I know, it's amazing, but I am absolutely loving it, to be honest with you. I'm fully immersed. So Lucy G, what's coming up on the show today?
So there's one big news item from this week, which we are definitely going to take a look at. And then we're going to give you our 3-word summaries of round 12 of the Vitality Netball Superleague, and then move on to our game of the round and player of the round. Then today, absolutely love this one, we hear from Mikki Austin all about being a player coach. We cover her early playing and coaching days, the challenges and benefits of being a player coach, mental health, and what lies ahead for her on her netball journey.
Amazing. Really excited for this one. So as you mentioned there, the big news item is clearly Mel Mansfiled has announced she is stepping down as head coach of Wasps Netball, which raises a big question. I mean, firstly, obviously, congratulations to Mel Mansfiled on an amazing career, very illustrious. Whenever someone retires, you always see all their accolades all over social media and you're like, wow, they've done so much. And big well done to her, obviously, of course. But the question is, who will step in? What do you think, Lise?
I mean, Bianca Modeste is the assistant coach. She's a big netball person, has been in and around the game for a long time. So I think that would be probably a top contender, but I do wonder whether they're going to really shake things up and just go completely rogue and bring a new person in, or do like a massive recruitment drive. I really don't know, but yeah, I can't say I was overly surprised at Mel stepping down. I did have a sneaking suspicion that she might do this year, but big loss for Wasp, but very, very excited for who will come in.
Yes, we shall see. So on to our 3-word summaries for the results in round 12. Take it away, Luce.
So Friday's game was Storm versus Bath, and Bath had a convincing win, 66-41. And I've gone for peace kept quiet. This was very much a blue brick wall in action. Defensively, Bath were just all over it. They had 10 intercepts to Storm's 5, 19 turnovers to Storm's 7. They were just ruthless. This is what blows my mind in this game, there were only 25 goals for Peace in this match, and then a relatively even split for the goal attacks. I think there was 10 for Wells and 6 for McGee, who then came on towards the end of the game, but that's almost unheard of for Peace. This was Storm's lowest score of the season and the only time they haven't scored over 50 since round 1. So wow. Bath did a number on them, They've really seemed to have found their groove now. So I think the likes of Mavericks and Pulse and everyone else chasing that top 4 spot had better watch their backs.
Next up on Saturday was Mavericks versus Dragons, with Mavs taking the win 55-46. And I said within touching distance.
Nice.
Mavs took this away in quarter 2 with a 20-10 quarter score. But aside from that quarter, Dragons were totally in touch, drawing quarters 1 and 3 and winning the last one by 1. We've said this before, they can compete for 3 quarters and just need that execution consistently. It's coming. Another win is coming. Will it be this weekend? Who knows?
I can taste it.
And there's still no sign of Fakahakatau on court for the Mavericks yet. They're also getting into their groove. I think that the game against Pulse will be a big one for them in terms of their top 4 contention.
Yeah, for sure. Following that game was Thunder versus Stars, with Thunder dominating 78-53. And I've said impossible to stop. it's insane to think that the disappointing thing from this game is that Thunder didn't hit 80. I mean, what on earth? They are just dominant. They still remain undefeated, and they've beaten Stars by 25 goals twice this season. I mean, that's what you call consistency, right? Mm-hmm. Thunder are averaging 67 goals a game this season. They are just impossible to stop. Metcalf was outrageous with 38 feeds, and Thunder defence was just super on it, whereas Stars had 19 unforced errors in this game, 8 of these from Leota and 7 from 2 of IT. Herdman did a good job again. She was strong. She had 7 deflections, 7 turnovers, but that attacking line for Stars really needs some work.
Yeah, they need more time to gel for sure.
Yeah.
On to Monday, and it was Rhinos versus Sirens on Sky, with Sirens taking the win 60-44. And for this one, I said, shooters on song. Sirens had never beaten Rhinos before, so we're going into the game hungry. They came away with a really convincing win, particularly quarter 2, which they won 16-6. Quarter 2, actually, for Rhinos was the second lowest quarter score of the season. Massive. Wow. For Sirens, this was their joint highest score of the season. And Leslie McDonald before the game asked for goals, and wowie, she got them. It was a 93% shooting from McCall, 29 from 31. Absolutely massive game from her. And much better from Goodwin on 81%. I think there is still room for improvement, but this Siren side were looking strong. And on the other side, Rhinos, they just crumbled in that second quarter. It was a disaster.
Yeah, to say the least. That was pretty difficult to watch, actually, at times. Mental. And finally, last game of the round was Bath versus Pulse. But another big score. It was 62-41 to Bath. And I've said, here come Bath. It was another tough game for Pulse, who are clearly still struggling without Fidoju. And besides the second quarter, which Pulse won by 2, they lost every other quarter by quite some margin. It was 8, 6 and 9. Pulse also really struggled with the penalty count again in this game. They had 71 in total and 27 more penalties than Bath. Zara Everett had a whopping 24 penalties and a caution to her name, which is 10 more than the highest individual penalty count for Bath, which was Moaney on 14.
Wow.
It was an incredible day at the office for Layla Guska. Once again, she had 6s across the board, 6 deflections, 6 intercepts, 6 turnovers. And she is really putting her case forward as the best goal defence in the world at the moment. I will not hear a bad word against her.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly she is.
I mean, Jo Weston might have something to say about it. She's in pretty hot form. But
yeah, I know. That's scary, isn't it? Oh, God. Oh, Commonwealth Games. I get so excited when I start to think about it. So just to highlight what you mentioned there about the margins in this round. So there were some big score lines and it was a bit of a blowout round. The average goal margin was 19.2 in this round, which is insane because you thought that in the second half of the season, teams would get to know each other and the games would be closer. But it seems like in the last couple of weeks, they've almost been like, oh, right, that's what they're doing. So we figured it out now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's not great from a fan perspective to have these blowout games. And I think they actually made it quite difficult to pick a game of the round because there wasn't that sort of close nail biter. But yeah, I mean, hopefully the Easter weekend will give us some really interesting matches, maybe some shock results and hopefully some closer scorelines.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to our game of the round, you mentioned there, Luce, it was tough to pick this week, but which one have we gone for?
Yeah, so we've actually gone for Rhinos versus Sirens. Prior to this game, both teams were pretty similar in terms of results. Rhinos were averaging 49 goals a game and Sirens 47. But I think Rhinos have arguably been more consistent in their scorelines because they've all been between that kind of mid-40s to mid-50s area, whereas Sirens have had more highs and lows with their scoreline. They've been as high as 60 and then as low as 38. So I was really looking forward to seeing who would be able to take control of this game. There were a few individual errors from both sides in the first quarter, but the Sirens' defence were really impressive and really structured. And I was curious as to see whether they'd be able to sustain it throughout the whole game. But I think they did, and I think they showed great consistency. I'm not sure I can quite articulate what happened to Rhinos in that second quarter, but there was a significant number of changes that clearly disrupted everything that they tried to build in that first quarter. 16-6 quarter loose. The second lowest quarter score of the season. I think with all these changes, we saw every single player, all 11 of them, out on court by the end of the second quarter. It's just it's too much. There's no chance for the players to really get into their rhythm, find their flow and build those connections on court.
Yeah.
There were some moments of brilliance, but then just followed by total brain farts. It was wild.
Yeah, and quite a few incidents of just yogurt mittens in this game. Do you know what I mean? Yogurt mittens, like a fumble.
That is my new favourite phrase.
Yeah, so sorry, Rhinos. Well, actually, to be fair, at points that happened to both teams. And yeah, it's just one of those things where when it starts to go wrong, it really does, when it rains, it pours. And I think as well, the difficulty for Rhinos was that Sirens' attack were really humming. And so they weren't giving them that many opportunities to claw it back. It was great to see Sirens coming back into this after a few games where their shooting percentages have let them down. It hasn't quite been clicking. And yeah, as you said, on the flip side, Rhinos, they really just crumbled. And as Tamsin Greenway put it, lack of connections, poor choices, bad decision making. Yikes.
Yeah. So moving on to our player of the round, who have we got loose?
So an honourable mention to Layla Guscoth and Beth Dix, who both had fantastic rounds. But I've gone for Phumza Maweni this week.
Nice.
She had a difficult start to the season with obviously those visa delays, having a couple of games where I think she was just being blown out of the game, but I think she's now really starting to settle and find her flow. The combination with Guscoth is my new favourite combo, living for it. Looking at some stats for Phumza over the weekend, in the Storm game, she had 3 intercepts, 9 deflections, 8 turnovers.
Nice.
Pulse game, 4 intercepts, 2 deflections, 4 turnovers. What was most impressive, though, for me this week is how in the Storm game, Maweni was able to keep Praskovia Peace to just 25 goals. And prior to this game, Peace had been averaging 46 goals per game. So that just shows what a number she did on her.
Yeah.
And the only other side who seemed to have the same impact on her was Dragons in round 10.
Oh, interesting. Another thing that I noticed with that Storm game in particular is that in the fourth quarter, that was the first time this season that Storm have been held to single digits within a quarter score. They only managed to score 9. So that last quarter was just insane. It was so good.
I really feel like it's about that combination that's allowing Maweni to shine. I think that's why we didn't necessarily see it so much at the start of the season when she first arrived, because it took time to build. But the long limbs of Guscoth and Pavlin, plus having a particularly defensive centre in Allison out the front, is delaying that ball and keeping teams off the circle edge, gives Maweni time to sight the ball. So she was forcing Peace to do a lot more work outside of the circle, and the efforts really paid off. I think that unit for Bath is so solid now. They're fully back in top 4 contention. They're back in the top 4 on the ladder. And for me, I don't see how they won't be in the semi-finals if they stay in their current form.
Yeah, and I think, when you got the likes of Kirsty Harris as well, who's having a ripper season, a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes she drops off in certain quarters, but, and then you've got SDL and Borgia. Like, it's hard to think that they wouldn't be in the top 4 now.
Yeah, definitely.
Coming up next, we chat to Mikki Austin about the balancing act of being a player, coach and director of netball at Surrey Storm.
Do you want to help combat climate change? Well, you can by joining Carbon Jacked. We're both members and we love it.
Memberships start from £2.50 and your money goes towards amazing projects, from planting trees in the Peak District to providing refugees with sustainable solar cookers. You can get a huge 30% off by entering Netball Pod when you sign up at carbonjack.com.
Carbon Jacked also do loads of great work with businesses, so get in touch if your company wants to become more sustainable. All the info you need is in the show notes, so make sure you take a look. It is such a pleasure to welcome the wonderful Mikki Austin onto the show. Great to have you, Mikki. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing, first of all?
Yeah, good. Mid-season now, 8 games to go. So yeah, I guess just right in the midst of the whirlwind of VNSL, really pleased and excited to compete this weekend.
Amazing. We would love to chat to you today about your experience of being a player coach and some of the highs and lows that come with that, as well as how you balance your player coach role with being director of netball at Surrey Storm. So first of all, you've been around the Super League since you were 17 years old, and it's no doubt shaped a huge part of who you are as a person. Who did you take inspiration from when you were coming up through the netball performance pathways from both a coaching and a player perspective?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I guess first and foremost, I feel so privileged to say that I'm involved in netball for a living in any capacity. Since the age of 12, it's all I ever wanted to do was be a netballer. And that wasn't even a thing when I was that age, that was just a dream of mine. So I'm so pleased that, after X amount of years, this is my 12th season in the Super League now, I could easily get pretty emotional about, the career that I've managed to forge out of this sport that I just loved as a kid. So I picked up the sport when I was in secondary school, just in PE. And I was the kid at school that just loved sport. Any sport, it was, can somebody fill in the rounders team? Mikki will do it. Someone run athletics, Mikki will do it. I come from a pretty sporting family. I'm part of a big family. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, so was always taught to eat quick and run even faster. So did mixed martial arts for years as a kid. We was really fortunate to be involved in horse riding as a kid, and one of my brothers was a semi-pro footballer. My dad was a footballer. My mum was a dancer. So I was always going to be in something pretty active. And I just did netball at school, and my PE teacher at the time was like, "Oh, you look like you really enjoy it. Have you ever thought about playing for a club outside of school?" So then just started to go along to club netball. And the club that I was part of at that time, which was called Robins, was just a local community club over in Essex, which is where I grew up. Their eldest team, which was a regional Prem team at the time, there was a player that played for Hertfordshire Mavericks, as it was known then, in that team. Her name was Monique Wood. She was their goal attack. And anytime she used to walk into training, I can't even tell you how starstruck I would feel. I would grab hold of my arm and be like, "Oh my God, Mum, there's Monique." She was honestly the best thing I'd ever laid eyes on. I thought she was just, in her kit, and she just looked great. And she had this beautiful ponytail. And I was like, that's what I want to be. So yeah, initially she was my first source of inspiration. And then I was really privileged that my first NSL contract when I was 16, 17 was for Hertfordshire Mavericks. So I kind of had this full circle moment then. So even in the midst of the madness, when things get really stressful now and, wins, losses and all of the rest of it, I have to take myself back to that 12-year-old kid who, quite frankly, right now is just living out a dream. And I never, ever lose sight of that.
That is amazing. And it actually is so interesting because everyone was there once, everyone was that young kid looking up. And it's amazing that you were surrounded and you were able to be in that club and then progress up through that. Were there any particular coaches at that time that saw you and thought, "Oh yeah, this girl's got it"?
Yeah, I was really fortunate throughout my youth days to be taught by some phenomenal netball coaches. I guess the two that stand out initially were the two in that first club, Caroline Wood and Jane Milbourne. They were part of the England pathway at that time, and they nominated me for England under-17 trials just from community netball. And as a 14-year-old, I turned up and got in, and that was my first step on the ladder, if you like. I'll never forget. I turned up to that England camp in football socks, because that was just what I thought was cool.
Wow.
And they were like, "No, what club do you play for?" And I was like, "I play for Robins." And they was like, No, what MPL team do you play for?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And they were like, "Oh, we've probably got to go back a step here." And that's how I found out about franchise netball. I literally wasn't even aware. So they were phenomenal coaches, and they were really hard coaches. They were pretty cutthroat. They just instilled an incredible work ethic in me, which I think has stuck to me to this day, whether that's as a player or stayed with me as a coach. I was coached by Amanda Newton through my college days, and she is one of the most formidable coaches England's ever seen, and she probably had one of the biggest profound effects on me, just in terms of the standards that she set, and this is acceptable, this is unacceptable, and it's up to you how you toe that line, but we're not going to compromise on those standards. And again, that hardline coaching really did resonate with me most as a person. I'm very much a grit your teeth, just work hard kind of athlete. So yeah, and I guess I think that's like the great thing about netball is even now, like, there's so many different connections and player-coach relationships that I've been really fortunate enough to build over the years, which is really, really lovely. I think that's pretty niche to the sport that we play.
Yeah, that is the thing. It really is a netball family. And I think that translates from the fan side, from every single aspect, especially with that coach relationship. And you mentioned there, hard work and your work ethic, which is undisputable from anyone who's ever seen you on the court or listened to you or anything like that. And you were actually named Surrey Storm's Director of Netball in July 2018. And at that point, you were the youngest ever head coach of a Netball Superleague team, and still are, I suspect. So what was that moment like when you heard that news that you were going to take on that role? What was that moment like?
Yeah, humbling, overwhelming, daunting, to be quite frank. I think how that whole experience came about was I look back on that time frame now and just go, God, like there was a lot of things over that last year that I was really questioning, where I was at with netball. Never once questioned my love for it, but there was a lot of challenges, I guess. The franchise as a whole was going through a lot of challenges, which, from those of us that was in it could all see, and really wanted to try and help it. And yeah, when the whole conversation came about around me stepping into this role, I was sort of, initially I had a lot of feelings of fear. Can I do this? Who's going to believe in me? How on earth am I going to sign a team of players who have no idea who I am and what I stand for? All of those really rational but very serious, like, I just fight or flight instinct, I guess. And I'll never forget, I came out of a meeting here at Surrey Sports Park, walked to my car, and the first person I called was my dad. And any person who knows me knows that me and Big Al, who is my dad, are the same person. I'm so, so fortunate with the support of my family and my inner circle. But me and my dad have got a really, really special bond. And I called him and was like, Dad, are you sitting down? And I told him, and he literally cackled laughing. And I was like, Dad, don't laugh. Like, this is serious. What am I going to do? And he was like, what do you mean, what are you going to do? He was like, you can't not do this. You cannot not do this. And anyway, we had a big, long chat, and I was sort of like, I think I just need to sleep on it. I didn't have a lot of time to make my decision. I think I had a couple of days to sort of decide whether I was going to leave my job, change my whole circumstance. I think it took the drive home before I called my dad back and was like, no, do you know what? I can do this. Yeah. And I think I had this devil on both shoulder moment where it was fear, anxiety, can I get people to buy into me? All of that stuff. And then on the other shoulder, I had this don't let this moment pass you by. I know it's going to be really, really tough, and I'm under no illusion of the journey that this is going to go on, and it's going to take a long time, and there's going to be some real moments where I'm probably questioning why on earth I did this, but I can't not do this. And I guess me as a person, I've always been would rather jump feet in first, and what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. I would rather try and fall flat on my face and know that I took the risk and at least did everything I could to make sure that it paid off. And then if it doesn't work, you just shrug your shoulders and say, well, do you know what? At least we tried. And sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But I knew that I could never live with myself if I let this moment pass me by. And as we know, coaching jobs come up so rarely. NSL coaching jobs come up even fewer times than that. And as you say, to be the youngest head coach, let alone director of netball, let alone player, head coach, director of netball in history, was something that I really, really wanted to relish in and jump at. So am I glad I did it? Absolutely. Do I love my job? Yes. Is it really hard? Unquestionably. But yeah, I don't regret it one iota. And as I say, no matter how stressful, I constantly remind myself that there are very few people that get to do the job that I'm sitting here doing now. So I am very, very lucky.
I absolutely love that. I'm a bit of a goer as well. Like, I love to jump in, with 2 feet. I do really admire that attitude of just giving it a go, and like, what is the worst that can happen? Because, like you say, these opportunities to work in netball, we are not the same as other sports. The opportunities are limited in every area, in playing and in coaching. So also then it makes sense why you would continue to do both, because that is a real option available to you. And it's really admirable actually listening to you speak, because it must have been a moment where you sort of thought, can I do all of this, or do I need to pick one? And was there a moment where you thought, I need to choose?
Yeah, quite frankly, absolutely. I think not only was there can I do this, all of this different emotion rolled into it, but also that's a lot of responsibility to take on all in one go. Is that a wise thing to do? But I guess the overarching feeling for me, to be really honest, was when this opportunity came along, I was 24, and all I ever wanted to do from the age of 12 was be a netballer. And I'd worked so hard to ensure that that could happen. I really didn't want to quit my playing career at 24. And I understand how short that window of opportunity is to be an athlete in any sport. It's the most smallest window, I think, in any job opportunity, because especially as a woman, because there's a stage in your life where you want to transition, you want to be a mum, or your priorities change, and you want to think about having a family and marriage and, all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, at the age of 24, when I feel like I'm in my prime, I've moved to a franchise 3 years ago. I thought 2 for now to put myself into a starting position. I'm now that kind of caliber of player where any team that I went to, I feel like I would be in contention for a starting bib. So I don't want to give that up. And selfishly, I don't think I should either. But then I also, the opportunity to be a head coach in the Super League is so rare. There's only 11 of us in the entire league. Then there was only 10 because Rhinos weren't involved in the league. And even fewer director of netballs and head coaches rolled into one. But yeah, I think for me, like, as I say, like, unbeknownst to the general public, years before that, my long-term goal was to always be in this position. I was built for this. And I know that sounds wild, but I know from a really young age that, I wanted to go into elite level coaching. I feel like I've got a lot to give in terms of people skills, in terms of my tactical nous of the game. So unbeknownst to everybody else, this was something that long term was always in the stars for me, and I was always going to work towards. And I am very much if I set my sights on something, I'm going to make sure that happens. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes me or what that journey looks like I will be obsessed with making sure that outcome comes to fruition. It just so happens that this happened a lot sooner than I expected. But I don't believe there's ever a right time for you to jump at an opportunity or say yes to something, because so I said no and waited to be more experienced, or to go through the journey a little bit longer, or to just be an assistant coach before I was a head coach, before I was a director of netball. Who's to say that would have put me in better stead or not? Like, I genuinely believe that there is nothing that can prepare you for this job other than doing it, getting things wrong, getting things right, learning a lot of lessons, taking advice from a lot of people that have been in the game, longer than you have. And, over my 3-4 years as tenure as head coach, I've done that. By no means a finished product, and still got, so many years worth of learning and listening and growing to do as a person first, and then as a coach second. But yeah, I'm really excited by that opportunity. And I guess for me, it's just, for me now, long term, I'm looking at what my next goals and ambitions are. And, some of that is what I can do here at Surrey Storm and what we can achieve together as a playing group, and getting the franchise back into that finals position and ultimately back as champions. And then my goals and aspirations go far more and above that. So yeah, I guess for me, it's just trying to stay present in the moment and enjoy the process of learning and developing as a person, as a coach.
Yeah, I find this so fascinating listening to you, because I think what's really struck out for me is this balance between I know that I can do this, and oh God, this is frightening. So, you know, and really balancing that and relying on the support of your team around you as well. So I know that in the last few seasons, you know, it's been quite tough for Surrey Storm. You haven't necessarily had the results that you would expect. And I'm sure there's been a lot of conversations internally about how to move forward and what to do. And obviously now you are on a definite upward trajectory this season. But when you're not winning games, or when you feel like you're not performing well, how do you emotionally detach yourself so you can still do your director of netball role and not get too bogged down? Is it about your support from those people around you?
Yeah, it's brutal, to be honest. And, you know, I'll be the first one to say that I'm still not sure that I've got that right. And I'm not sure I ever will. It's like this whole work-life balance discussion. Like, I don't know anyone who thinks
that it's not real.
Exactly. So I feel like that's just a constant process. And I don't feel like I'll ever get that right. But yeah, I think first and foremost, those of us within the organisation, you know, my bosses, my inner circle, the people who know Michaela, the real me, we all knew that this was going to be like a 3 to 5 year process. And we was under no illusion of how difficult the first few years was going to be, let alone in the midst of a global pandemic. You know, that before I came into this position, the franchise went through a rebuild that never really happened. So then we kind of had to start that process from me. So we always knew that that was going to be really difficult, and it was. I learned a lot of lessons in those first 3 seasons, certainly last year when results were really hard to come by. You know, for a franchise that is a Super League winning franchise that I was a part of, you know, winning 3 games in the season and finishing 10th was brutal. And, you know, that responsibility weighed really heavy on me, to be really honest. But I think it does, naturally. When you're the head coach or you're the director of netball, the first person you look at is you. And when confidence is low and wins are hard to come by, you know, the first thing that you question is your self-belief. You start looking insular and going, oh, well, can I do this? And, you know, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? You start to question everything. But I think one thing that I've always really stayed true to is our values here at Storm, or my values as a head coach, and really tried to instill that in our playing group. And, you know, win, lose or draw, as long as we're adhering to those values and the structures that we're putting in place are representative of that, then we know that we're on the right path. You know, it's interesting. I did a podcast with Tamsin Greenway a couple of weeks ago, and I'd never actually heard her say this before. But she said in that, you know, my first season as a player coach, nobody wanted to play for me. And that was mind-blowing for me to hear, because you think it's just you. You really do think it's you. And it isn't. It's just the process that you have to go to when you're a brand new head coach. And it takes a few years for people to start believing in you, and then a couple of years for you to start getting results. And then before you know it, confidence is everything in this game. And I feel like now, you know, we've really worked hard this year to turn that tide. And, you know, no matter what happens come the end of the season, that's one thing that I'm going to be really proud of, is that we've started to see a change in the status quo within our playing group, which is phenomenal in 1 year. I really do think so. So, yeah, but I think for me, I've gone on a bit of a journey in my role. And the one thing that I've probably altered over the past couple of years is my mental health and well-being, and how important that is in order for me to function and do my job effectively. You know, my first year in this job, I didn't know any other way of doing it than throwing myself headfirst in and having it consume every part of my life. And that was the right thing to do for lots of different reasons, but that meant a lot of sacrifices, some that probably weren't effective. You know, it probably wasn't an effective use of my time, definitely was burning the candle at all ends. And it's only from then that I was able to look back and reflect and be like, okay, these are the things that are priority, that I absolutely have to make sure is me and I have ownership over. These things, not a priority, and I need to let that go. And I think also, like, I learned a really hard lesson about myself in terms of, I personally went through a transition. You know, I come from being an athlete where netball was my hobby and something that I loved and enjoyed doing. And now it's my job. You know, it's not my hobby anymore. No matter what way I look at it, it is fun, but it's not fun, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I had to find something else that was my outlet, because netball used to be that for me, and now it isn't, because it's what pays my mortgage. So, you know, I went through a transition of, you know, what is it that I'm doing just for me? That is a place that I walk into that the first thing they ask isn't what's going on with netball and the team and this, that and the other. It's just how are you? And to be honest, that's why I train so much. That's why I go and do CrossFit, because that's my outlet. I do that for my own mental sanity, so that I can walk into my job and be like, right, okay, that's my me time done. This is now business and this is now, you know, job. And that's really helped, I think, you know, looking back.
Oh, wow. What's really stuck out for me here when you've been talking is kind of two things. Firstly, on the mental health side, is it's like that metaphor of put on your own life jacket before you help somebody else. Like, you've got to look after your inner life and your personal situation before you can then move forward to, you know, widening that. And you obviously have a lot of responsibilities of different people to look after. So it's not just a playing group, it's also your assistant coaches and your management and everyone. So it's a really big network for you to manage. So looking after yourself becomes even more important. And the other thing, I guess, is remembering that, you know, you're not on your own in it, and you're not an island. And wow, I can't imagine like hearing Tamsin say that as well. And when you think of her as like this kind of god, basically, like guru figure,
oracle of netball.
Yeah, exactly. And actually she's just a person as well, and she went through that with you, so it must have been so comforting to hear that. And what's really shining through as well is your resilience and that kind of mental strength to keep going. And another thing that I wanted to ask is around the actual playing side. So in an interview with Draft Central, you said, when I've got a bib on and I'm playing, whether that's in training or matches, I transfer to just being a player. That decision on whether I'm doing my job or not is taken out of my hands. I appreciate for the good of the team. Sometimes it's the right thing for me absolutely not to be on court, and sometimes it's the right thing for me to be on the court. So how do you manage that process of having to relinquish control to your assistant coaches on the sideline?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, we operate on two things at this franchise, which is hard work and honesty. And that extends to everybody, staff, playing personnel, coaches, you know, no one's exempt from those two things. So me and my assistant coaches have a fantastic working relationship, a really great understanding. And I think that's imperative in order for me to be able to function and wear the hats that I do. So we basically operate on, as I say, whenever I have a bib on, I have to take on that player role, because if I'm too busy coaching while I'm playing, then nothing happens. You know, I'm not doing my job as a player, the team can't function. And that's probably something that's a constant work on for me personally. But yeah, like, it would be really hard for me as a player coach to be on the court with a bib on, having to be concerned about what change needs to happen. Is the person on the bench ready? How am I going to get that information across to them? Like, that's just impossible. And nobody could do that. And obviously I play a position which is centre, which doesn't stop. So where am I going to get the time? Like, you don't have 10 seconds worth of time to stop, breathe and say that information. You know, it's impossible. So that responsibility is explicitly handed over to our assistant coaches. Pre-training, pre-matches, we will always sit down and we'll have a coaches meeting where we formulate a plan. So we are all on the same page about, you know, who the change is going to be, what is the time frame on that change happening. You know, if the opposition tactically make a change to do X, this is what we're going to counteract it with. If we are X amount of goals up and we need to make a change, this is what it's going to be. If we're X amount of goals down and we need to make a change, this is what it's going to be. You know, we have a really solid game plan for every eventuality, so that I know we're all on the same page. And then that's it. I'm hands off. It's not up to me. It's up to them to know that we all have a really high level of faith that they're going to make the right decisions for the right time for the good of the team. I'm just a player at the end of the day. Sometimes I have really good days, sometimes I have not so good days. So for as long as I'm playing well, performing well and doing my job, you know, I'll be on the court. The days that I'm not performing well and not doing my job, I won't be on the court. And I'm not immune from that. The athletes know that. When we're doing stats and video, I'm not immune from you know, being called out on not doing my job or being held to account. And I think that's really important. You know, I set the standard for our group, but I'm not immune to any kind of feedback, whether that be positive or negative, because I'm a player and I will always get things wrong. And I know that, and I'm happy to own that when I don't, because I'll also own when I do things well. So yeah, I think that's really important. But that's a constant process that we're always just open and honest with our communication about.
And there's no room for ego in this, is there? Because you can't be worrying about, oh, I don't want to go off of it. Like there's just no opportunity for that. And what's really fascinating is hearing how you transform, you know, almost like you turn and you're the player, you're Mikki the player as opposed to Mikki the coach. Have you always found that transition smooth?
No, and I probably don't find it that smooth as I'm making out now, to be honest. I think, you know, as I say, it's just a constant process. And as you say, like there is just no room for egos, but I can't name it because it uses a naughty word, but we have a policy here at Storm, which was actually set by the players. And we have a value side and then a, you know, no idiots policy, we shall call it, on the other side, which is just some of behaviours that we don't accept here, whether that's in playing, whether that's in training. We just don't operate on that basis. So, you know, we don't deal in egos, we don't deal in selfishness, we don't deal in people who don't want to put the team first. Like this environment just isn't for you if you're exhibiting those behaviours. And if that starts to creep in, we'll very kindly ask you to walk out of the training venue and come back in when you want to leave those behaviours outside. Now, we don't have to do that often here because generally we have a really great playing group, and Storm have always been that way. And that's one of the reasons why when I moved here, I loved it so much, is because it's just a no ego environment. Like people genuinely want you to do well versus, well, I need you to do bad because I want to get on the court. Like we don't operate like that here. And I think that is quite niche. One, in an all women environment, which can be really hard and really, really niche with, you know, the amount of emotion that's involved. And second of all, we're all athletes. So we are all the most competitive people known to man. So that can also be quite a hard dynamic. And I think, you know, for me, anyone that knows me personally, and it isn't that many people, but, you know, I would like to think that I am just a really humble, hardworking woman. You know, I'm so diehard in going after what I want, and I make no apologies for that. But I am really humble and I don't operate on ego, and I know what I'm good at, but I also know my flaws more than anyone, and I accept that about myself. So yeah, like I guess for me, like this job, what we're trying to achieve here at Storm is bigger than any one of us. So irrespective of whether it was me in this position or somebody else came and took this job tomorrow, the show would roll on. This isn't about me. It's just about the overall and the team goal. So if that involves me as a player, fine. If that doesn't involve me as a player, fine. If that requires me to lead on activities as a coach, fine. If it requires my assistants to take the lead, fine. It doesn't matter. This is bigger than any one of us, and we all just have to understand our role at any one given time throughout the season, because we're all just trying to do the same thing, which is win.
Yeah, it's simple actually when you think about it that way, isn't it? It's like it's about the team and it's about getting the win, and whatever needs to be done, you know, it's not a relentless pursuit of self-gratification or self-exposure, you know, or anything like that. Self-exposure sounds weird, but, you know, anything like that. And I think I really liked what you said about it can be difficult in an all-female environment. I think we're often taught that there's only so many seats at the table and we all need to push and sabotage to be the person. And actually, you know, what I'm hearing so much is about the community, and even though everyone's a queen bee, they're all working on the same hive type thing, and that there's a common goal and a common purpose. Yeah,
100%. That's such a great analogy. And I think, you know, one thing you get in an all-female environment is a huge amount of empathy. You know, women are social creatures by nature. We like to get along with each other. We like to catch up about what you did this weekend. And we have a really high level of empathy of what's going on in your day outside of netball. So I think it's really important that you relish that and you find a way to incorporate that within your training environment, which is really competitive and everybody wants to win. But, you know, there has to be a level of, well, let's talk about you as a person. What makes you as a person tick? because you play netball and that's great, but you're a person who plays netball. So let's get to the root of what you need to be the best version of you when you walk through this door, so that you can give me the best netball version of you. But we're all just people at the end of the day. Like I am a head coach, and I'm heavily involved in netball, and I'm a netball player, but netball doesn't define my success. If we win the Super League, that doesn't define my success. That isn't going to make my life complete. It's not going to change me when I walk through my front door at the end of the day, or how I interact with the people that I love and love me. I think what COVID, to be quite honest, taught me, and what lockdown made me have to do as an individual, is have an identity away from netball. Who am I as a person, and what do I value, and what is really important to me? Because before that, I probably would have just given you all netball answers. And what I really found out is when that's stripped away, who are you and what are you happy with? So I feel like there was a lot of growth in that. And I know that happened to a lot of people, because you have to sit with yourself and be like, actually, do I like me as a person? And do I like this factor in my life? And do I want to change that? And, I think, now I'm just a lot more well-rounded as a human being. As I say, like, win, lose or draw, as much as we all take it insanely seriously, my success is valued on so many other things other than what happens in my career. How I am as a person, how I interact with people, my manners, things like that. All of that is really, really important, and we tend to try and put that first, so that you can function as a netballer second. And that's no different to me, so that I can function as a coach. I can't define my success on win, lose or draw, because I can assure you, even if I was to go and win the Super League, I wouldn't sit at the end of it and go, right, that's it, I've completed it. There's always going to be something else after that. So that can't be what I define my success on.
Yeah, no, I 100%. Just listening to you here, it's really inspiring. I don't know if you've ever been told that you're inspiring before. You probably have, but you are for me, and I'm sure that you will be for our listeners as well. Before we wrap up, I'll just go on to a couple of rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So very quickly then, what is the best and worst thing about being the coach?
Best thing is getting to pick the team, and worst thing is, really honestly, the players aren't my friends anymore. And they were my friends before, and now, whether you like it or not, I sit on that side of the fence. I'm your gaffer, I'm your boss, I'm not your mate. And that can be a really lonely place sometimes, especially when you come from them being your friends first. And it's really hard to not want to get involved in the banter and the nights out and all of that kind of stuff. So that's probably the worst thing.
Yeah, actually, interestingly, we had Lisa Alexander on last year, and she talked about that dynamic and balancing that being really tricky as well. Next one, who is the funniest person to have around at Storm training?
Peace Proscovia, without hesitation, the most unintentionally hilarious person I've ever met in my life.
Oh my God, I would love to meet her one day. I think she sounds like a cracker.
Oh, honestly, you've never met anyone like her.
And finally, what's next on the path for you? Do you see yourself staying as a player coach at Storm before moving on to pastures new? We know you've mentioned before, like the Roses job, that's obviously the dream job. In a couple of sentences, what does it look like?
I think I've got a lot of unfinished business here at Storm before I look at anything far-reaching and above that. The plan when I took over this role was to always get this franchise back to where we know it can be, which is top 4 contenders, then final contenders, and then ultimately winning the championship. So my sights are firmly set on what I need to do to try and ensure that happens for this franchise. How much longer I'll be a player coach, couldn't tell you, as long as my body will allow me to. And I don't know when that will be. I'm feeling very old. I feel very slow. And I guess, above and beyond that, I just want to try and be the best coach that I can be in whatever environment that's in. So if that's franchise netball, if that's, one day I'm fortunate enough to lead a country at a major championships, who wouldn't want to do that if you're in the coaching business? But, we'll see. As I say, I've got a lot of unfinished business here at Storm First, and that's where my obsession lies currently in the short term.
Yeah, well, you're definitely not looking slow to us at home, I can tell you that. And yeah, we can't wait to see, where you channel your energies next, whether it's, at Storm for the next few years or playing, coaching, whatever you're doing. Mikki, this has honestly been a fantastic conversation, and I feel so privileged to have listened to you, talking to us in such great detail as well, and being so kind of open and candid about your experience. And I think it's such a unique position that you hold. So it's fantastic just to hear from you a bit more about that today.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind.
Wow, what an awesome interview with Mikki. She's such a doll. I love how open she is and how willing she is to talk about herself and her personal life, and especially talking about mental health. Like, that's not an easy subject to discuss. So yeah, absolutely love that conversation. Before we wrap up, it's time to take a look ahead to the next week of matches. Round 13-14 double header. Whoop, whoop. This year, we've teamed up with Sideline TV to pick our Showdown of the week, highlighting the two key players who we cannot wait to see go head-to-head. Who are we looking at this week, Luce?
Well, we're riding high because we picked Pumza Mweni on Proscovia Peace last week, which was a great matchup.
Yes, indeed.
So let's see if we can do it again. This week, we're looking at the Pulse Mavericks game, and it's in the centre court, Qtr versus Honey.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Both young guns. Qtr having an outstanding season. She's been an absolute star within the Mavs setup. Honey has managed to work her way into that starting centre bib for Pulse over Ellie Ratu, but is probably still looking to stamp her authority on the position. But I think that's quite good. When you've got someone chasing your tail, it really spurs you on. Obviously, as I said, both young guns, oodles of energy between them and passion. I have a sneaky suspicion that Beth will come out on top in this one.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be a really good matchup to see.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree, actually. I also think that with the form that Pulse have been in the last couple of days, Mavs are definitely on the stronger side. So I think the rest of the team out front of Qtr will help her to shine more than Honey. But yeah, let us know what you guys think by heading to our socials, and don't forget to tag @sideline.tv.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Qtr Time. We can't wait to bring you more netball chat and a wrap up of round 13 and 14 next week.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media @Qtr Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Do get involved in the conversation online by letting us know what you think of this bumper round of netball this weekend and which players stand out for you over the 2 days.
Also, if you're at the Easter weekend on Sunday, we'll be there, so come and say hi to us. We would also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review, as it helps other people to find the podcast. And a big thank you to everyone who has done that already. We really love seeing that. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please let us know, and do spread the word with your netball pals so even more people can get involved. Don't forget to check out our partners Carbon Jacked and take advantage of the exclusive Netball Pod 30% discount on their memberships. It's also Earth Day next week, by the way, so it's a great opportunity to sign up for Carbon Jack, just saying.
Definitely.
And take care, everyone. Enjoy the doubleheader weekend and see you soon. Bye.